Okay, so maybe by now you've noticed that I posted a review. I don't have a key out there. I thought I would work the key out on a review video. So if you want to check your work, you can always pull the videos up and just scroll through and check your work that way without actually listening to it if you don't want to take the time. I'm going to start at number 8 just because this was one that I noticed that we hadn't had a whole lot of in our assignments, and I wanted to make sure everybody was okay with it. If you look at number 8, it says 2x minus 5y is 80, and we're supposed to find the y-intercept. Now, you're asked to define a y-intercept up earlier in the review, and a y-intercept is the point where a graph crosses the y-axis, where the graph crosses the y-axis. But another way of looking at the y-intercept that is actually much more helpful is it is the point where x is equal to 0 and you get the y that goes with it. So whatever your y value is, that's your y-intercept. It's always where x is 0. So if I want to find the y-intercept in this problem, what I can do is set x equal to 0. That's how I can find the y-intercept. With your intercepts, the opposite variable is always equal to 0. That's one way that you could word it that might help you remember both of them. So if I'm trying to find my y-intercept, I want to set x equals 0 to find the y-intercept. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, and I'm just going to go in here, and I'm literally going to plug in x is equal to 0 to find it. 2 times 0 is 0, and 0 minus 5y is a negative 5y is equal to 80. And if I want to find out what y is, if I want to solve for it, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5 to get y by itself. And my y would be, let's see, I think that would be, it goes in there 1 time, 5 goes there 36 times, it would be negative 16. So my y-intercept would be 0, negative 16. So literally, set x equals 0 to find the y-intercept. A similar problem, you just have to find the x-intercept. To find an x-intercept, I'm going to set y equals 0. The definition of the x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. It's also where y equals 0, which is a more helpful definition because if I want to actually do something with the definition, I could actually find the x-intercept by everywhere I'm seeing a y, set it equal to 0. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just go set y equal to 0. 7 times 0 is 0. These always end up being nice little equations to solve. 3x plus 0 is just 3x. 3x is 63. If I want to find what x is, I could divide both sides by 3 to solve for the x, right? And I get x equal 21. So my x-intercept is x is 21, y is 0. That's the best way to express it. Please write your things on your test and quizzes. Write all these x and y intercepts as points so that you get used to thinking about which part is 0. It just helps you cement it even more when you write it that way. I'm going to go ahead and do 10 now, A, and then I'll do 10B. You're supposed to transform these into slope-intercept forms. And when you transform something into slope-intercept form, basically all you're doing is you're putting it in y equal mx plus b form, and notice what's unique about this is that y is by itself. So in order to do it, you just solve for y. If I solve for y, let me move some things. I want y by itself, so I'm going to add or subtract anything I could first. Remember, this is a positive 2x. Lazy mathematicians don't write the plus on there, so we could put it there to help me remember to subtract 2x from each side. I have negative 7y. And let me write this with the x term first just so it looks like y equal mx plus b. We want to put that x first. Our brains kind of know to expect it there. And so it's nice to help our brains see a pattern more easily. Remember, I can't combine 28 minus 2x. They are not like terms. The 28 does not have an x, so you can't put those together. You can't add them or subtract them. If I want y by itself, I could come through now and say, well, to get it by itself, the opposite of multiplying y by negative 7 would be to divide every y and everything by negative 7. Make sure you divide everything. Negative 7 over negative 7 is 1y. A negative over a negative is a positive 2/7 x. Oh, there's my slope, 2/7, because it's always in front of the x. 28 divided by negative 7 is a negative 4, so I'm just going to write minus 4. And there I have that in slope-intercept form. The B one might be a little harder just because you got a fraction in it. B, the equation is y minus 3 is negative 1/3, x minus 7. Someone today in class said, could I just multiply everything through by 3 and get rid of that fraction? Yeah, you could, and then you could divide by 3 later. I wouldn't recommend that just because you kind of need to mess with fractions to get a good sense of how they work. If I'm trying to put something in y equal mx plus b form, the easiest thing to do is solve for y. And here's the y. All I really got to do to solve for y, or at least it looks that way at first, is to move the 3 over. Okay, so I do that, but I got to be careful because I cannot combine that 3 with that minus 7 right now. That minus 7 is not really a negative 7. It's a negative 7 times a negative 1/3. Because if you remember, when I simplify, I've always got to multiply and divide before I add and subtract. So this negative 1/3 is going to have to get distributed first. I would have negative 1/3 x, and negative 1/3 times a negative 7 would be a positive 7/3. And then I can add my 3 in. You might notice now, if I've got these numbers that I could combine, and I need a common denominator to do that. So I'm going to multiply 3 by 3/3 so that I have a common denominator of 3. Negative 1/3 x, there's my slope, negative 1/3. And I'd have 7/3 plus 9/3 would be 16/3 if I added those fractions together now. So my equation in slope-intercept form would be y equal negative 1/3 x plus 16/3. Going straight in a row as long as I have time, just because these are the ones that give people the most problems. If I have a line that contains the points 2, 8, and 6, 5, I could find the slope. One thing we did in class today is we made a table out of some points to find the slope, and let me just remind you, that might be a really nice way to get your slope all the time. If you put them here, and you remember that your slope is your change in y and your change in, over your change in x, it's a fraction. How are my y's changing? If I put these in order, to get from 8 to 5, I subtracted 3. That was my change in my y, so that goes on top of my fraction. And my x's, how are they changing? To go from 2 to 6, that's a plus 4. So I put a plus 4 on the bottom. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. My slope is negative 3/4. That's handy already because I know I got that. I can write my equation. It says leave it in the most convenient form. So if you think about it, there's a really convenient way to write this right now, and it's to use the point slope form because I have the slope now. And I have a couple of points to pick from, and all I really needed is one. One of the things that we had decided to do in class is if I get a list of points and I'm trying to write an equation, why don't we just all agree to choose the first point so that we don't have to write every single equation that could possibly make it out of this. If I fill in the stuff I need to make my equation, remember I got to fill in my x1 and my y1. Here's the point. This is the x of the 1 point I'm choosing and the y of the 1 point I'm choosing. So I'm going to label it x1, y1, which is really pronounced x sub 1, y sub 1, if you ever listen to somebody say it mathematically in a mathematically correct way. My slope here, I found that earlier. It was this negative 3/4 here, so let me fill that in. My x1 was up here, it was 2, and it actually goes over here. A lot of people want to stick it on the left-hand side because they're used to going from left to right, but if you do that, you'll have it in the wrong place. My y1 right here is this 8. This is the most convenient way for me to leave my equation, so that's what I'm going to do. There's my equation for number 11. Number 12, they tell me they want a line parallel to the graph of 2x plus 3y equal 24. And let me just comment on this. When they tell me they want the line parallel to this, I have to remember that parallel means it's going to have the same slope as this line that they give me. Same slope. So if I find the slope over here real quickly, that'll be something I can use in my equation. The other part of this is they tell me it has a y-intercept of 5. So let me just write that down really quickly. Y-intercept of 5. Okay, let me go find my slope because I know I'm going to need that. No matter which equation I choose to write in, I'm going to need the slope. So if I need the slope, let's put it in y equal mx plus b form, and I can find my slope then by looking at the number in front of the x, and that'll be my slope. And I want that same slope for my line. So let me subtract the 2x from each side to move the x's over. 3y is negative 2x plus 24. Okay. I want the y by itself, so what I'm going to do now is I need to divide everything by 3. And I'm going to get, when I finish up, y is negative 2/3 x. There's my slope right there. I want the same slope because I want that parallel line which has the same slope. And then I don't really care about the y-intercept. The y-intercept is 8 here. 24 divided by 3 is 8. I don't care. It has nothing to do with what they asked me to do. And so many people, when they do these problems, think they got to do something with the 8. No, 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 no. The only thing I care about here is that slope. I want the line parallel to this line, so I need to just make sure I have the same slope. So my slope is negative 2/3. And they have given me a y-intercept of 5. And if you think about the most convenient way to write this equation, don't I have y equal mx plus b, where the slope goes here and the y-intercept is the b on the end. So if I want to write this the fastest way possible, I'll just fill in the negative 2/3 for my slope and my y-intercept of 5, and I'm just going to leave it like that, because in this case, that's the most convenient thing. Let's look at number, I got off track here, 13. 13 says write the equation of the line that contains the origin. Well, the origin is the point 0, 0. They just gave me a point there, and they tried to disguise it by calling it the origin. And it's perpendicular to the graph of y equal 0.75x plus 15. So it's perpendicular to this line. All I want from this line is the slope. Again, I do not care about the y-intercept. If I want the slope from this line, I don't want the same slope if it's perpendicular. I want the opposite in sign, reciprocal of this slope. Well, this slope is 0.75. I need to change that into a fraction, because if you remember, I got to flip a fraction, and I can't flip this decimal. I could put in my calculator 1 divided by 0.75, and it would actually tell me what the answer would be. 0.75 is a fraction, though, if I just kind of follow what I already know is 3/4. If this slope is really 3/4 here, if I want to flip it, it would be 4/3. But remember, there's another part that you can't forget. You got to have the opposite sign. This one was positive, so my perpendicular slope will be negative. This is the slope I want to use with 0, 0. Do you realize that the point 0, 0 is actually a y-intercept because x is 0? It's an x-intercept and a y-intercept. The most convenient way for me to write this equation really quickly would be to use y equal mx plus b form, because my y-intercept is 0 right here. So that goes there. My slope is negative 4/3. That goes in front of my x. And a lazy mathematician would not even write that much, would he? He would leave off the 0. My equation would look like this, and I would be done with 13.